Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Monday morning to you all. Hope you guys are waking up and feeling good out there this morning and having a wonderful start to your day and a great beginning to your week out there. Here to bring you the latest information that we have on what is Hurricane Debby. Debby is an 80-mile-per-hour hurricane making landfall pretty much right at this moment into the Big Bend of Florida. So the first thing we'll discuss is what's going on with this system right now. We'll even take a look at what the radar looks like as the actual eye of this hurricane is making landfall, like I said, pretty much right at this moment. So we'll speak on that. We'll go over the latest advisory from the National Hurricane Center. We'll go over all the latest model guidance that we have. We'll talk about impacts. We'll get very detailed on that, especially on the rainfall, where catastrophic historic rainfall totals are still projected to happen across southeast Georgia and South Carolina. We'll talk about winds. We'll talk about storm surge. And then we'll speak heavily on what this system potentially could do once it gets off the coast of the southeast. It could potentially re-intensify, and what we'll speak on with that is the environment background that could support this to re-intensify if it hangs out off the coast of South Carolina and Georgia for long enough. And the second landfall potentially could be just as strong as the first one that's happening right at this moment. So we'll discuss that. We'll talk about steering currents, and then, of course, we will break down what's going to happen weather-wise across the entire lower 48 for today. So take advantage of those timestamps. Timestamps are scattered throughout the entire video. My videos are very long, very detailed, so definitely just utilize those if you just need to get the information you need out of this video and then head on out throughout the rest of your day. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. If anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put those in the comments below. It gives me an opportunity to pray over it, and it gives others an opportunity to do so too. So this is Hurricane, I almost keep wanting to say Beryl. This is Hurricane Debby making landfall right now. The best case scenario, I would say, just about happened with the first landfall with Debby. Debby definitely was affected by a lot of dry air yesterday. In fact, still getting affected by some dry air right now. This really definitely held this system back from being this worst case scenario upon landfall. This could have ended up being as high end as a Category 2 hurricane. It really could have. I mean, you had the very warm sea surface temperatures of the eastern Gulf of Mexico, upper 80s, low 90s. Upper wind pattern was very favorable. There was just a lot of dry air getting sucked into the southwest of this system that was really preventing this to really rapidly intensify. Okay, the structure, the steel, obviously, I mean, now that it's making landfall, land interaction, this will weaken back into a tropical storm here in the coming hours. But this prevented this from really getting a really good structure. Therefore, no great structure, it cannot rapidly intensify. So right now, 80-mile-per-hour Category 1 hurricane. I think peak intensity at one point was 90 miles per hour. So for once, we didn't have a forecast intensity to bust in the bad way, in a more higher end way. So that's the good news with this. So this is what it looks like on the satellite here. Now, if we take a look at what the actual radar looks like, the center of this storm making landfall right now into the Big Bend of Florida. Perry up here, so it's a little bit south of where Idalia made landfall, last hurricane season, but some of the same similar impacts as Perry is getting hit by another eye wall. Mayo, Salem getting hit very hard right now by very strong winds. And the actual center of this storm, of course, like I said, moving right over, I think they say Steinhatchee. I think that's the way you pronounce it. Definitely someone correct me if I'm wrong. But right into this area. So a little bit south of where Hurricane Idalia made landfall last hurricane season, but bringing a lot of impacts to some of those same similar areas that got slammed by Idalia last year. So I hope you guys are faring well this morning in northern Florida. This will continue to move. This definitely made landfall southeast of the center of that cone that we spoke on yesterday evening. And we were kind of thinking that. I remember I mentioned in last night's video that this system looked to be kind of east of guidance. And pretty much that's what ended up happening. It made a landfall a little bit further east than the actual center of that cone. So we continue to move forward here and we look at the latest from the National Hurricane Center, and we'll see if there's any new information that we have. There isn't. This is why I say sometimes. If you look at the millibar, the central pressure is 979. I would think that's close to a Category 2 hurricane, but the millibar doesn't always tell the story. I mean, I always like to say sub 90 millibar tropical system normally is getting into Category 1 hurricane status. Once you get sub 80, you're getting very close to Category 2 status. It's a 979 millibar low right now, and it's still just an 80 mile per hour category. A Category 1 hurricane. But right now it's moving north-northeast at about 10 miles per hour, so it's really slowed down, and it's taken some of that easterly jog now, not just north or northwest. It's starting to tick east now, and that's what models have been showing, right? So that's the latest advisory now. As far as this cone making landfall right now, it's going to technically make a landfall as an 80 mile per hour hurricane. Forecast obviously weaken with land interaction with Florida and Georgia to a 65 mile per hour tropical storm by this afternoon. It'll weaken even further down into a 50 mile per hour tropical storm, by late tonight. 50 mile per hour tropical storm by 2 p.m. Tuesday, and then sometime tomorrow gets back off the coast. Well, gets off the coast of Georgia and South Carolina, and then still a 50 mile per hour tropical storm 2 a.m. Wednesday, and then from 2 a.m. Wednesday to 2 p.m. Wednesday, they're saying it's going to maintain the same strength. I could see it strengthening, but this is what's wild, guys. You see how close these two green dots are together? This is 2 p.m. Wednesday, right? This is 2 a.m. Thursday. So in 12 hours, it only moves, this little bit of space. Okay? 2 p.m. Wednesday, 2 a.m. Thursday. Strengthens to a 60 mile per hour tropical storm. And then from 2 a.m. Thursday to 2 a.m. Friday, this is 48 hours. Has it making a secondary landfall just north of Charleston, the actual center of the cone, just north of Charleston, close to Georgetown, something like that, as a 60-ish mile per hour tropical storm. This could increase. They could say, hey, this has an opportunity to re-strengthen to a hurricane. I could see it happening in the later updates. We'll see what the 8 a.m. update says that comes out in about an hour or so. But you see how wide this cone is, right? This could very well make landfall over here. That's not the color I'm wanting to use. It shows pink. Over here, it could make a landfall back down here, or it could do exactly what the National Hurricane Center is thinking right here in the center of the cone. But a lot of model guys has this getting way out here, then making a landfall kind of around Wilmington, maybe Myrtle Beach. If that happens, you're probably going to get some of your stronger scenarios. It making landfall as a full-fledged hurricane again. Okay, but now, you got areas like Virginia in this cone. West Virginia are in this cone now. Areas of the Delmarva, southern Maryland are in the cone now. And I expect areas on up the road, up here in the mid-Atlantic, southern New England to get in the cone also here in the next day or so. And yes, up in Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Newfoundland. You guys got to watch for this. When I break down the model guidance, I'm going to talk about you guys a little bit too. Okay, so this is the latest from the National Hurricane Center. Now, the more traditional cone from the National Hurricane Center, what you guys are probably used to seeing. Here it is. Same kind of deal, right? Just more the traditional look. Almost all of Virginia in the cone. Almost all of North Carolina and all of South Carolina is in the cone. But, this is not going to scoot up to Atlanta or anything or get to Alabama. We're thinking. Okay, the GFS would disagree with that just about. But as far as watches, warnings, and advisories, let's update this, see if anything's changed. Nothing has. You see this dark red right in here. Those are, you see the brighter red here. That's hurricane warnings. Hurricane warnings are up all the way into southern Georgia, guys. Tropical storm warnings up in this more red color right here. This red color right here, that's tropical storm warnings. Tropical storm watches are up in more of this lighter red, almost pinkish color. Almost all the way up to Augusta. Definitely not up to Augusta, but pretty far inland into Georgia. And then we got these tropical storm warnings already up for the low country of South Carolina. We got flood watches all the way up to the Midlands. And I expect these tropical storm warnings to be issued up into Myrtle Beach and Wilmington here in the next few updates also. So that's the latest from, the watches, warnings, and all those things. Now, if we take a look at all the model guidance that we have, all right, the GFS is initializing this too weak, but let's not focus too much on that. Let's focus along this track. GFS continues to march this over north Florida, gets us into Georgia, brings a lot of impacts throughout the day and tonight into southeast Georgia, a lot of heavy rain. Okay, this really starts to slow down. It takes all the way until tomorrow night before this gets back off the coast of Georgia. Okay, then goes from 1,000 to a 999 millibar low tomorrow night. Then we get into Wednesday morning. This actually jogs southeast, folks. Gets way down here, 998 millibar, tropical storm. We get into Wednesday afternoon, 996, 993, Wednesday evening, and then it jolts back to the west, makes another landfall, but this time into Georgia after coming off the Georgia coastline, and it goes back west, makes a landfall into Georgia, brings a whole lot of heavy rain back into Georgia. Atlanta, gets this into North Georgia, upstate South Carolina, brings a ton of rain to the southern Alps, and then dances back to the east. Remnants of this gets back into South Carolina this weekend, and then it finally heads on up the road. Now, what does this do once it heads on up the road? Because I do want to show my folks in the Northeast too, if something like the GFS was to play out, this would obviously bring a ton of rainfall for the Northeast this weekend. This is the actual center of the storm. Makes landfall into Nova Scotia sometime Sunday morning. The timing, what the GFS does, is an outlier. I will say that right off the dot. Now, what about the European model? Making landfall right now. We'll continue to scoot over North Florida, Southeast Georgia, 998. It's actually strengthening over sections of Southeast Georgia. If you don't believe that a tropical system can strengthen over land, look up the brown water effect and just research it. Won't dive into that right now, but it is possible. Look up brown water effect. But this kind of meanders over Southeast Georgia, dumps quite literally catastrophic rainfall, historic rainfall, low country of South Carolina, Southeast Georgia, right on top of Savannah. This thing literally stalls out in this area for like 8 hours and just dumps tropical rains. Then Tuesday afternoon, tomorrow afternoon, gets back off the coast of Savannah, low country of South Carolina, sort of meanders around, stalling, drops to a 986 millibar low Wednesday morning, just continues to stall off the coast of South Carolina. We're getting into Wednesday midday, 984, 982. It's just bobbing and weaving back and forth. Has no real true forward motion to it. Bottoms to a 981 millibar low. This is getting back close to a hurricane status if it's not a hurricane at this point, based off the Euro. We're getting into Wednesday evening, 980. Okay, we're getting into Thursday morning. It's a hurricane, Category 1 most likely, and then it makes landfall somewhere between Wilmington and right into the Myrtle Beach area as a Category 1 hurricane sometime Thursday. Okay, and then proceeds to sling another slug of rain back into the Midlands and the Piedmont, North Carolina. Would bring big impacts to the PD of South Carolina, the Sandhills of North Carolina, and then it just brings a lot of rain, gusty winds across North Carolina into Southeast Virginia. We head on up the road into the Northeast. Here it comes. This is Saturday morning, bringing a lot of impacts for New Jersey, Delaware, the Delmarva. Look how close this low pressure is off the coast of New England. Brings a ton of rainfall for southeast sections of New England, and then actually strengthens this storm, and then proceeds to bring a lot of hefty impacts to Nova Scotia. And if we even look a little bit further, for example, in southeast Canada here, and we continue to keep this going, here it goes, making landfall into Nova Scotia. Got to watch out Prince Edward Island. And yeah, this system keeps going. This is like August the 13th, and we still have a low pressure from the leftovers of Debby up here. Okay, Icon has consistently been further north of everybody. I think Icon has a little bit of a northerly bias, I'm starting to think, with these tropical systems, but gets this off the coastline tomorrow morning, all just immediately begins to strengthen this system. It's all the way to a 975 millibar hurricane off the coast of South Carolina Wednesday morning. Deepens this to a sub 970 millibar hurricane Wednesday afternoon. Gets it all the way, to a 962. Makes a landfall into the Grand Strand just south of Wilmington as a 960 fart. 960 fart. Yeah, there's your laugh of the morning. A 965 millibar hurricane Thursday morning. It's not a laughing matter, but we're, I guess, kind of easing the anxiety attention by calling the hurricane a fart here. But makes a landfall here into the Myrtle Beach area. Kind of the same timeline as the European, except the Icon is definitely a full-fledged Category 2 hurricane. Okay? Icon has consistently been further north, but some of these runs were showing it way up here in North Carolina. Now it's came back south down to South Carolina more so, and then proceeds to bring a whole lot of impacts to North Carolina up into Virginia. And the Icon in the longer term up in the Northeast really keeps this further inland, brings a slug of moisture throughout Maryland, central and eastern PA, all the way. We do not want the icon happening for the interior sections of New England. We don't need any more rain up in Vermont, New Hampshire. But sure enough, the icon scenario brings a ton of it up into the Northeast. What about the European ensemble? Almost every single member gets this off, except maybe one or two, at least in the shorter term, gets this off the coast of South Carolina. Like this is, I guess this is Wednesday midday. Watch how all these members just about hook back northwest, make a landfall into the Carolinas. Some do come back towards Georgia, but all these kind of come back into the Carolinas. And some of these members, guys, are pretty strong. And then what happens after that? Well, some of these race off and near miss for New England, grinds up the I-95 corridor. Some of them get a little bit further inland, bring a whole lot of heavy rain. But in general, this entire area, folks, I'm clearly pushing black here. This entire area needs to watch out. I mean, from D.C., Baltimore, Philadelphia, New Jersey, New York City, Long Island, southern New England, this could be this could definitely be a coastal hugger, just flat out. We got to watch this high pressure too, because something weird can happen, and this can kind of hook in. You just never know, but this is a solid signal for on up the road too, guys. So, if we're talking about impacts, the dreaded pink is back on your screen. So if you live in this pink area, that's 20 to 30 inches of rain possible between now and the next 5 days in the low country of South Carolina. This burgundy color, 16 to 20 inches. The more red color, that's 12 to 16 inches. Now forecast for Wilmington, Charleston, going for over 20 inches of rain, folks. It's a lot of rain. Catastrophic rainfall totals. The rainfall with this, along with the coastal flooding with the onshore flow that will inevitably be there, regardless if this is a weak tropical storm or a full-fledged hurricane, this is going to be a significant storyline in the coming days. Okay, but even all the way up into Raleigh now, I mean, potential for 6 to 8 inches of rain. Columbia, 6 to 10 inches of rain. There could be a very, very sharp cutoff into here, and my neck of the woods included. Okay, somewhere in here is not going to get what they're forecast. They're either going to get more or significantly less. So give your meteorologists in this area some grace in this area, because it's a tough rodeo to figure out where the cutoff in this rain is going to be. Okay, now the excessive rainfall outlook. I can't reiterate this enough. If you live in this pink area, that is a high risk of flash flooding. That means you have a 70% chance of flash flood guidance being exceeded within 25 miles in a given location. The red area is a 40% chance of that. When you get a high risk of flash flooding, that is nothing to joke around with, folks. It almost always materializes to life-threatening flash flooding. Almost always. When they put this high risk up, they have extremely high confidence that flash flooding is going to occur. And Charleston to Savannah to Myrtle Beach, Georgetown, Edisto Island, Hilton Head Island, all these areas, please take this serious. All the way up into Wilmington. Okay, and just to zoom into a couple individual areas, here's southeast Georgia, Savannah going for 19 to 20 inches of rain. Tybee Island, 15 to 20. You getting into Hilton Head, Edisto Island, Beaufort, 15 to 22 inches of rain. Charleston going for over 20. Myrtle Beach is now bumped up to 17, 16 inches of rain or so. Columbia, you're getting up to 9 to 10 inches of rain. That could be less than what this is showing, depending on how much this tropical system hugs. I could see it dropping in this area. I could see it rising. Orangeburg, 14, 15 inches of rain. Florence, 12, 13. And then we head on up to North Carolina. This is an area where the rainfall forecast could go up. Okay? But Wilmington going for, 16 inches of rain. Southern Outer Banks area between Wilmington and the Southern Outer Banks, like Topsail Island or something like that. Anywhere 12 to 15 inches of rain. Raleigh going for 9. Charlotte could get close to a half a foot. Significantly more rain once you get further east. And then, we take this on up the road and let's look at the Mid-Atlantic. Okay? And we're going, this is all the way a week out. Okay? So this is as far as we'll go up here, and this is as far north as we'll go. But anywhere from 6 to 8 inches of rain across the entire Delmarva, New Jersey, Long Island, southern New England. So a lot of rain's already coming. We're too far out to talk about wind as far as this far up. Okay, we don't know what the wind's going to do. But here is Weather Prediction Center for how much rain could potentially fall in this area, the I-95 corridor. That's a lot of rain on the way, guys. So as far as winds, this is the possibility of seeing tropical storm force winds, 40-mile-per-hour winds or higher. 100% chance you're already experiencing it right now in North Florida, southern Georgia, especially southeast Georgia. I mean, anywhere from an 80 to 100% chance to see it. Savannah, it's creeping up to a 50 to 60, 70% chance to see tropical storm force winds. You're going to see it. And we're expecting this to tweak a lot right in here in the coming days as this graphic gets more in view. This is between now and, when is this? This is between now and the next, I always get confused, 120 hours. So it does take it all the way out to about Friday evening. But I expect the confidence to increase for tropical storm force conditions along the Carolina coastline for sure. So, this is the latest from the National Hurricane Center as far as where the core of the system is going to go. So, if you live right here in southeast Georgia, the core of this system between now and Wednesday evening is going to go right through this area. And then, of course, it gets back off the coast, the open water off the coast of Georgia and South Carolina. But if you live in this area right in here of Georgia, right in here, anywhere from 60 to 75-mile-per-hour wind gusts are possible. Outside the main core, you're going to get some breezy 30, 40-mile-per-hour wind gust. Breezy conditions will start to get pretty breezy all the way up in South Carolina today. Also, you'll notice just a little uptick in the breeze. You'll know that something is on the way for sure. So, as far as storm surge, let's see if we have any updated content from this. We do not. They have not increased this yet, but I do expect this to increase to over 6 feet of storm surge in certain areas of the coastal regions of Georgia and South Carolina. You guys are obviously dealing with these max storm surge right now. A lot of storm chasers going live right now into the areas of Florida, the Big Bend of Florida. So storm surge is already happening right at this moment. So a lot of our attention is going to focus in on the Georgia and Carolina coastline here in the coming day or two. So there is a severe weather risk to this, guys. In the yellow area, this is mostly driven off a tornado threat, but you do have a slight risk from the Big Bend of Florida all the way over to Jacksonville, southeast Georgia, all the way into the low country of South Carolina, almost all the way, pretty much all the way up to like Georgetown, South Carolina. A slight risk. Tornado threat is really what this is driven off of. In the brown areas where you have a 5% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in a given location. And guys, there is a severe weather threat for tomorrow. I expect this to bump up a little bit. But there's just a marginal risk along the Georgia and South Carolina coastline. This is really driven off a 2% risk of a tornado. That could change. If we take a look at what the radar representation could look like for today based off the HUR model, we keep this going. You're going to see an uptick in rain this afternoon in the low country of South Carolina and obviously southeast Georgia, which you're already seeing. You see all this heavy rain down here in southeast Georgia, heavy squally weather into the low country of South Carolina, the Midlands of South Carolina up to Augusta, Columbia, into Florence, into the PD. You'll start to see an uptick in rain showers, but I don't think the core of this will move in until later tonight. But Charleston, Myrtle Beach will start to see some rain. Savannah getting hit by gusty rain showers. Tornado threat will even be present. And then we're getting into tomorrow morning. And then this is where the leftovers of this core is right over southeast Georgia. And then we'll start to have this intense banding. In fact, I want to get a little bit closer look here at South Carolina. Go back to this. We're just a little bit too far out for my liking. But this is when we're going to start to enter an issue. You see these banding features moving into South Carolina. We definitely have a solid onshore flow. Water's basically getting pushed up against the South Carolina coastline, even North Carolina. That mixed with the fact that we have these banding features right into here. These are going to produce squally weather. 40 to 50 mile per hour wind gust. And they're going to produce a threat for tornadoes as this is on the northeast quadrant of this tropical system. So you're going to have a tornado threat right along the coast as we're waking up tomorrow morning, most likely, along with a lot of water getting pushed up against the coastline. Storm surge will be on the increase, and this will continue. And this is when conditions will start to go downhill even further inland, like Columbia, Orangeburg, up into Florence, Fayetteville. A lot of rain will begin to fall, have an opportunity to fall. And then I think tomorrow evening, I'm telling you, I think they'll increase the severe weather threat right into here. We're going to have, I think, a legitimate tornado risk in this area I just drew here with these kind of banding features moving in. They're going to have rotation in them. This is tomorrow evening around 6, 7, 8 p.m. That tornado threat in that area is legit. So be aware of that, and this will continue. And then we have to see what happens next. Kind of Tuesday is when a lot of water gets pushed in, and then some of these bandings, some of the rain could get kind of recede back off the coast of the southeast, and then might get re-pushed back in as this system tries to make a secondary landfall. But of course, these tropical systems, if you don't know, they bring their own low-level jet. So this is the center of the storm, right? If you look right here, this is the east quadrant of the storm. So winds are screeching out of the south right here and then pivoting around the system. So this system basically has its own low-level jet coming out the south right here. Very moist air, obviously, because it's a tropical system. Low-level wind flow going over this area. Therefore, kinematic-wise, the winds aloft support a tornado threat with any banding features that move around this system. So that's why you're going to have a legit tornado threat moving onshore. It's going to be definitely waterspout potential with this, and this continues as you're getting into tomorrow as, areas of South Carolina, even North Carolina, will be on the northeast quadrant of this storm. Center of low pressure is right into here, northeast quadrant of the storm. So these banding features moving in will bring a risk of tornadoes. So we'll move forward here. Now, the big question is, obviously this is making landfall right now. The big question is, what is this going to do once it gets back off the open waters of the southeast? Well, temperatures in Celsius, 29, 30, 31, even areas 32 degrees Celsius, especially along the Gulf Stream, which moves in just like that off the coast of the southeast. So just slightly warmer waters a couple hundred miles off the coast of Georgia and South Carolina with the Gulf Stream. If this fully gets over the Gulf Stream, then there's a potential this could strengthen at a pretty moderate pace. So check this off the box. 29, 30, 31 degrees Celsius is equivalent to temperatures in Fahrenheit in the mid to upper 80s. Even there might be some areas that are like close to 90 degrees. The other worrisome thing about this is where the center of the storm is probably going to be on the Euro sometime late tonight. Once this gets off the coast of the southeast, okay, so this is, let's take it all the way to about Wednesday about midday. Air is being dispersed out away from this system. The upper wind pattern, this is winds about 35, 40,000 feet up in the air. Air is being dispersed outward from this storm. If you look at the stream lines right in here, see these lines kind of going like this. They're going like that, kind of wrapping in like this, and even dispersing out like this. So air is being pushed out away from the storm. This is allowing for more air to rise. That gets kind of dispersed outwards. It's called we call it an outflow. Okay, upper wind pattern basically is supportive for this to strengthen also, along with the very warm waters off the coast of the southeast. So favorable upper wind pattern, very warm waters. I don't think this will be dealing with as much dry air as it's been dealing with in the eastern Gulf. I think this has a legitimate shot to strengthen back into a hurricane off the coast of the southeast. It's a very favorable environment. And that's why the millibar number does drop once it gets back off the open waters. So it's something to watch out for. Now, why is this really stall out? Well, in the shorter term, you got light ridging that's going to build on top of the storm. This is initializing for tomorrow morning. So light flow around this ridge is going like this. Of course, this is our tropical system right here. This is trying to get some forward motion to it, but it really can't because it has a counterproductive flow around this very light ridging. So this is kind of pushing up against the forward motion of the system. That mixed with the fact that the flow in this ridging right here is very weak anyways. So it's not being really pushed one way or the other. Even though you're seeing the shade right here of reddish, kind of orange, which is high pressure, the blue low pressure, it's very weak. There's not much flow going around this, very light. Okay, so you keep this going, and this gets off the coast to southeast. At this point, steering current slow to a halt. And that is because there is no flow moving this one way or the other. Yes, you do have a flow around this trough going like this. There is a weakness all around this system, but there's no great flow one way or the other. This is too far away. This ridge is too far away to steer this. This ridge has receded back this way, and the flow's going like this around that. So this system, our low, is basically too far away from any pulling mechanism in the upper levels of the atmosphere as far as the upper steering current. So that is why this big blob of blue down here, which is Debby, sort of just meanders around down here and literally just drifts into the Carolina coastline, basically because there's nothing pulling it one way or the other. And the fact that it does strengthen allows it to finally kind of move north, because if it's going to move anywhere, it's going to move north. Stronger systems, really low pressure in general is always going to try to fight to gain latitude. So it eventually just going to meander into the Carolina coastline. Might get a boost one way or the other from this ridge that kind of moves over the system temporarily, but I don't even think that stays over the system very long. So that's an update on the tropics, guys. If we break down what's going on across the rest of the country, weather lab, my thing I look at with the radar that I typically pull up, it's down right now, down for maintenance, so I can't show you the radar. I do apologize. But of course, all these alerts that you see right here across the southeast is driven off Debby. We do have flood watches already up for anticipation of the rainfall from Debby in New Jersey, southeast areas of PA, northern Delaware. Flood watches are up for a big trough digging down with a cold front for Wisconsin, a few counties in Minnesota. And then we got heat alerts out west with red flag warnings in the pink, excessive heat warnings in the purple, heat advisories in the orange, which are also up for Mississippi and Louisiana too. So excessive rainfall outlook, obviously you can see this bright pink down here. This is where we're going to have life-threatening flooding because of Debby today. So this is obviously the big storyline with flooding that we've already talked about earlier in the video, but we do have a slight risk up here for areas of the Midwest, Great Lakes region, and a slight risk in New England, which we don't need any rain up here in New England, okay? But we're going to have an opportunity for some of it for today. Slight risk means in the yellow, there's a 15% risk of flash flood guidance being exceeded within 25 miles in a given location. There's also severe weather risk today, and we've already talked about this severe weather risk for the southeast, but there is a slight risk that extends through the Midwest, through northern Ohio, Cleveland included, through northern PA, all the way through the heart of New England. Level 2 out of 5, this is a big cold front digging down a trough. It's bringing some pretty comfortable weather behind it, which is another story that I just don't have the time to get into. There's a pretty pleasant air mass coming for the northern tier of the country, folks. A little early taste of fall, and it could dip down pretty far south. If things can slow down at some point this week, maybe we'll have an opportunity to talk about it. But I mean, there's a chance that things are going to continue to stay pretty active in the tropics. So it's just going to be hard to show the right amount of attention to everything, right? So, but tornado threat is a 5% risk here in the Midwest. Low tornado threat across the Northeast, and of course, we've already talked about the Southeast. Wind threat in the yellow area, that's a 15% risk of winds exceeding. That is wind. Yep. Of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. And then the hail threat also is pretty elevated. The yellow area, a 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. Southeast, most of the weather is driven off Debby. A lot of rain will continue to move through southeast Georgia. Gusty showers and storms. A tornado threat will continue to be there throughout the entire overnight hours. And then, of course, we got to figure out what happens tomorrow. But we're going to continue to get these banding features across the peninsula of Florida today into tonight also until the system fully gets on away from Florida. But the rest of the Southeast, really not a drop of anything. It's pretty quiet weather. But up here in the Northeast, here comes these storms. And guys, there could be storms anywhere from Michigan, northern Ohio, northern PA, pretty much anywhere in New York, Vermont, New Hampshire. And some of these could pack a punch, guys, today. I mean, they really could. There's going to be widespread thunderstorms across those areas I just mentioned. This is getting into this evening, a very stormy evening, potentially from Cleveland to Erie, to maybe Buffalo, Rochester, Finger Lakes, Binghamton, up to Syracuse, maybe Albany, the Adirondacks, the Tuck Hill Plateau, Vermont, New Hampshire, all the way to the down east areas of Maine can be, the down east areas of Moon could be dealing with some scattered showers and storms. And then, of course, these will kind of weekend with the loss of daytime heating. We'll still be left over with some showers by the time we wake up to tomorrow morning. So be mindful of that. The south central U.S., guys, I mean, it's pretty quiet out here. Some scattered downpours are possible in the south central areas of Texas. Some showers, some storms possible in Colorado. Outside of that, there's really not a whole lot to spend time on out in the south central U.S. Now, the north central U.S., we're going to continue to get this funnel of moisture. We're going to have an opportunity for some strong to severe storms from Minnesota through Wisconsin down to northern Illinois today, southern Wisconsin. You see these stronger storms that develop in this corridor here from Minneapolis to Madison to Janesville to Chicago to Milwaukee. Some big-time storms are possible late this afternoon into this evening, and all this will continue. The leftover energy from this will cross over Michigan and begin to affect lower Michigan as we're waking up tomorrow morning. There's a damaging wind, large hail, and a tornado risk for these storms basically in this corridor, I would say kind of right into here. So be mindful of that. Today, definitely a risk of some strong to severe storms. And then we move to the western U.S. We'll continue to get some rain up in northeast Montana, and then some rain is possible across the central Rockies, southern Rockies. Very scattered about, nothing too much to write home about at all, but certainly some showers scattered about across the Rockies. Temperatures, cooler air diving in behind this front in the northern sections of the country. South of the boundary, temperatures well into the 80s and 90s. Very hot conditions, stagnant air with a ridge meeting up to the boundary of this trough. So widespread 90s, very hot air across the south central U.S. and the Mississippi Valley. So temperatures out west, there's a look at that. And yeah, that's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. Stay safe out there. God bless all y'all. Thank y'all for the amazing support. I do apologize for the people in the lower 48 that I've not been able to take time on, get very detailed like I normally do, put up those timestamps for you folks. I hope you guys understand, because I know that you folks from the regulars tune in for this portion of the video. There's just so much going on. It's hard for me to keep up with. Yeah, so I hope you guys understand that. But God bless all y'all. Have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you this evening.